Hey, good morning, everybody. I think we're ready to start today now that we're at the top of the hour. Just want to thank everybody for joining us today and being here for this webinar for the 2025 Renewal Ramp Up and our Q&A session. We hold this annually to prepare everybody for upcoming renewals, answer any questions, and give you all the details that you need to know to um, have a successful renewal season. So today I'm joined by Anna Holdren, our P&L Operations Director, to discuss your property and liability renewals. And on the workers' compensation side, I'm joined by Senior Client Service Representative Juan Lacayo to be discussing workers' compensation. So we will again be discussing, as I mentioned, what you can expect from this year's renewals. We'll provide details about navigating the process in Origami, where you'll be performing all the updates. And we'll also provide contact information if you need additional assistance from our team throughout the process this season. A couple housekeeping items real quick to go through. We're recording the session today, and we will be providing a copy of this recording to everybody that's signed up through the same way that you registered through Eventbrite. So we'll get that up and sent over. It'll be a link to our Renewal Information Hub, which is now active on our website again, and that'll have all the resources that you'll need that we go over today, and it'll be where we place the recording as well as a PDF version of the slides today for download. For questions today, if you have any throughout the session, feel free to type them into the chat box. We'll answer them as they come up. And then we'll also pause at the very end for another Q&A session to touch on any bases that we missed throughout the presentation. So with that, I think we can kind of get started and talk about what we're going to go over through today. Get our screen up here. All right. So this is just kind of what I mentioned. It was our presenters today, Anna and Juan. I'll be passing the mic over to them shortly. There's a couple email addresses to keep in mind as you go through renewal this season. We will put this slide up again at the very end if you don't have time to jot all this down at the moment. For today's webinar, we're going to discuss the timeline for renewal this year. Then we'll be discussing specifics about workers' compensation renewal, property and liability renewal, and then have a Q&A at the end. And again, we'll put up that contact information slide that I just showed at the very end too, so everybody has time to note that. So let's jump right in. Starting with renewal updates timeline, this is what you need to know and what we're looking for in terms of deadlines. So we're going to be able to email renewal invitations out to our membership in September. Early September is looking like where we'll be able to cross that box off. And within that email, we'll include various information on rates, coverage changes, and reminders about renewal, and a link to the website where you'll be able to actually perform that renewal. Several reminders will be sent out through the season, so you'll be able to keep up with any updates or needs from us if it hasn't been completed. And then the website will close end of business on November 1st for P&L. And then something to note is that we begin reviewing renewal update submissions on a first in, first out basis. So the sooner you can get that into us, the quicker we'll be able to look at that and determine if we have any questions and have to send it back to you. So then the question we get is when will renewal documents be sent to you once you've submitted your or the stuff for us? Members who qualify for a small, who qualify as a small member will have their renewal documents issued in late August, early September. That's an automatic process. And we will begin issuing P&L coverage documents after October 1st once members go through and complete their renewals. Just a note that we have here in bold, workers' compensation renewals and property and liability renewals are processed and issued separately. So if you submit both of those at the same time, if you're a member with all those lines of coverage, you may receive your documents back at different times because different teams are working on those. Again, we review submissions on the order that they're received, but we want to point out that if you are in a time crunch or have unforeseen events or hardships, let us know in advance. We can work with you on this. So we just need a little bit of a heads up there. And again, the sooner that we get that update from you, the sooner that we can provide you with the renewal documents and get you on your way for 2025. Discussion about payment we'll talk about real quick. For property and liability renewals, payments are due January 2nd. If you're a non-deferred district with property and liability, automatic cancellation will occur after 60 days past that due date, which is March 3rd. If you are a deferred district with property and liability coverage, cancellation would occur 90 days after that payment due date. Workers' compensation payments are due January 10th, and that's in order to receive your early payment discount. And intent to cancel notices then would go out at the end of January if that due date is missed. If you want to pay your bill online or via check, that is the methods that we offer. eBill Express is our online payment system, and we recommend utilizing that. It makes things easy on us administratively, and it's convenient for membership as well. So again, there's a link here on this slide. That link is also available on our Renewal Hub, csdpool.org/renewal, and we'll discuss that again at the end of this presentation. If you do pay by check, please include a copy of your invoice to ensure payments applied accurately. And then a couple other notes on this slide to take into consideration that we do have quarterly pay plans available for property and liability, non-deferred districts, and most workers' compensation districts. And then if you need more time to pay, just please let us know in advance before November 1st, preferably. We're willing to work with you on this. We just need to have some communication and heads up on that. Big note here, if you're new to Renewal with us, first time going through this process, we use Origami Risk to process our renewals and to ask for our members to update their renewal information. And so you will see emails that come from this domain here, notifications@origamirisk.com. Either whitelist this, talk to your IT department, or just keep an eye on your spam box as well. This is where you'll be receiving communications from us throughout this season. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to Juan Lacayo. He's going to talk about workers' compensation. And again, if questions are coming up, go ahead and just type them in the chat box. We'll pause at the end of slides and then at the very end of the whole session. All right, Juan, thanks for being here with us.
Thanks, Alex. Good morning, everyone. My name's Juan Lacayo, and I work on the CSD Pool's workers' compensation team. And this year's renewal will be my second renewal with the pool. Today, I'm going to be your 2025 workers' compensation renewal guide. First, I'll present a brief overview of the board member only workers' compensation renewal, which was automatically completed on August 9th. Next, we'll discuss important dates and information about renewals for districts with at least one employee, which will include a simplified example of an individual payroll schedule and the information that's essential for us to process renewals without delay. And finally, I'll share answers and clarifications to frequently asked questions pertaining to workers' compensation renewal submissions. Then at the end, like Alex said, I'll answer any questions that you all might have for me about workers' compensation renewals. So without further ado, let's talk about work comp renewals. Board member only coverage is for districts with 0 employees and was specifically designed to only cover the administrative duties performed by district board members. The annual contribution for board member only coverage remains the same at $450 for members with a broker and $445 for members without a broker. There is no online update required for districts with board member only coverage. Like I mentioned earlier, board member only coverages were automatically renewed on August 9th. The only action required for board member only coverage is to report to the pool when a board member's annual stipend exceeds $1,200. Intent to cancel notices will be issued to districts for non-payment on January 30th, 2025. So please mark that date on your calendars or set a reminder for that date. All other districts with at least one employee should budget a 5 to 10% contribution increase over any increase that you might normally see due to an increase in the district's payroll. You should expect to see renewal instructions emailed to your district contact or broker, if applicable, in mid-September. Please ensure that your renewal updates are submitted by the October 18th, 2024 submission deadline. So mark that date on your calendars too. It is critical that you report estimated annual payrolls for each individual employee for the 2025 renewal, and that you review your employees' class codes for accuracy. Once submitted online and processed by our service team, renewal issuance could begin as early as mid-October. However, renewals cannot be issued until we receive the approved rating factors from the Division of Insurance. Please note that in the absence of your renewal updates, an automatic 10% increase on payroll will be applied starting on December 2nd. Another date to remember is January 10th, 2025. Your district's workers' compensation contribution or proof of payment must be received by January 10th to take advantage of the early pay discount. And just like with the board member only coverages, intent to cancel notices will be issued to districts on January 30th, 2025 for non-payment. Next slide, please. As you can see on the example payroll schedule, the data absolutely essential for your workers' compensation renewals are individual employee first and last names, official job title, classification code, employment status, and estimated annual payroll. Next slide, please. So online renewal for non-BMO members. Please note that the Division of Workers' Compensation is now requiring self-insured pools to collect individual employee job titles, payrolls, and employment statuses. As such, pool members are required to submit individual employee names or identifiers like initials or employee ID numbers, as well as estimated annual payrolls, official job titles, and class codes. Any budgeted positions that have not been filled by the time of your renewal submission should be labeled open for the employee name. This also applies to all seasonal positions yet to be filled. Identical positions must be listed individually on the employee schedule, which means that if you have 20 lifeguards on staff, then we expect to see 20 lifeguard positions with individual payrolls. Employees expected to leave employment with the district next year, i.e. during the 2025 coverage period, should still be listed on the employee schedule with prorated payroll. Please be sure to double check your total payroll and employee counts to ensure that all fields are filled in, because missing information will trigger another data request, which could delay the issuance of your renewal. And finally, remember that overtime pay should be converted to straight pay. Now I'll open up the floor to your questions. Hearing none, then I will hand the spotlight over to my colleague, who will be your 2025 Property and Liability Renewal Guide, Anna Holdren.
Thank you, Juan. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us, taking the time to hear about the renewal for 2025. I'll be presenting the information on the property and liability. Renewal instructions will be emailed to everyone in early September. That email will include a link to your survey within Origami, which will ask you to review and update 3 pages of information. The due date to submit your renewal details is October 31st. If updates are not received by that date, an automatic 10% increase will be applied to the contribution and renewal documents automatically issued. I did notice we had a November 1st date, and this is October 31st. So November 1st is a Friday, so that'll be our cutoff. Just to clarify that, because I know there was a discrepancy there. The renewal survey will require districts to update their exposures so we have accurate information on the nature and extent of your operations and asset values. You will need to update your schedules, which include the general liability, property, inland marine, and automobiles. There may be some additional applications or documents, depending on your selection of some optional coverages we have available. They will be included in the renewal survey for you to complete and upload, or we will email them to you for completion. Let's look at the schedules and applications in more detail. Pardon me. Total operating, we use the general liability schedule to obtain specifics about your premises and operations by using a variety of class codes. This helps us to set an appropriate contribution for the risks that apply to your special district. With Origami's renewal survey, we'll include a list of available class codes along with the exposure base to enter. That exposure base can include total operating expenses, total square footage of an occupied premises, total payroll, number of board members, number of employees. Not all the class codes listed will apply to your district, but please be sure to review the list to verify that what we have is correct. If there's any missing, to add them, and if there's some that no longer apply, that to delete those. 2 of the exposure bases that can be confusing are total operating expenses and services contracted out. So let's look at those in a little bit more detail. Total operating expenses, you should use the figure on your 2025 budget. If you don't have a final budget, please use your figures from your preliminary or draft budget. If you don't anticipate any major changes, excuse me, if after finalizing your budget, there are major changes to those figures, please let us know so that we can adjust those figures accordingly. Amounts that you can subtract or exclude from total operating expenses are debt services, capital projects, interest on taxes, contingencies, reserves, and financial transfers to other districts. If your district provides more than one service, such as water, sanitation, parks and recreation, divide your total operating expenses into each of those applicable class codes. That way we can see what expenses you have in each of those services. If your expenses don't match any of the listed categories, please enter them as any other. Please be sure to include all expenditures, even if there are payments to vendors, contractors, utilities, and other fees. With respects to services contracted out to others, we consider expenses for services the district contracts out by choice or by nature of the fact that the district does not have its own employees as services contracted out to others. Please do not include an expense or fee for services contracted out by necessity. For example, although districts contract out audit services, legal services, election expenses, insurance, and utilities, you do so by necessity because the services cannot be performed by a district, even if it did have employees. Because the liability risk associated with these services is transferred by another party under contract, it reduces the district's exposures, and therefore we apply a credit against your contribution. Those expenses that qualify as services contracted out should be listed under class code 900. And please note that your services contracted out should never equal or exceed the total operating expenses figure. So please be sure to double check your numbers to ensure this is not the case. Also, for those districts that are sanitation districts, if your district is budgeted, if you budget for sanitation operating expenses, you're eligible for a 33% discount on that portion of your general liability contribution. To receive the discount, the sanitation maintenance warranty deductible endorsement needs to be signed annually by an authorized representative of the district's board. By signing annually, you warrant that the sewer lines are regularly inspected and maintained in accordance with your district's procedures and industry's best practices. A link to the endorsement will be available on the third page of the Origami Renewal Survey, and it should be completed and uploaded before you submit your updates. Before we move on to the property, inland marine, and automobile schedules, I just want to check with Alex to make sure that there aren't any questions in the chat that I can answer before we continue on.
No questions yet, Anna. But again, if anybody has any, just type them into the chat box. You can click that button at the top of your Teams, and we will pause as they come in at the end of this section too, if there's any that are related to this slide.
Great, thank you. Next, we'll move on to the property, inland marine, and automobile schedule. As a reminder, for coverage to apply, limits for your building, contents, pipes, outdoor property, equipment, automobiles, it must be listed on the schedule in order for it to be covered. If it's not listed, it's not covered. Please compare your asset inventory list to your schedules so you can make appropriate changes, such as the addition of a recent purchase, deletion of an asset you no longer own. And also, please review the values of your assets. We have the following options of actual cash value, which is replacement minus depreciation, or replacement cost. We'll include details about each scheduled item asset. So as you review the schedules, please correct any inaccurate information, such as location addresses, building information, equipment make models, serial numbers, VIN numbers, etc. We want to make sure that the information on your schedules is up to date and accurate, so that there's no issues if a claim were to arise. Next, with respects to business income, for 2025, all members with scheduled property will automatically receive business income, extra expense, and rental income coverage with an additional $250,000 limit for all scheduled properties for the property coverage document. This is the change for 2025. The limit will no longer be a sublimit to your location. This is an effort to broaden coverage for all of the special districts. Business income coverage, including extra expense and normal payroll, reimburses lost income and extra costs associated with covered property loss. For example, if a recreation center closed due to a fire, there may still be ongoing payments for utilities, lost funds from patrons that you normally would have collected, excuse me, and extra costs for relocating administrative staff to a temporary office and payroll of critical employees. Business income would cover those ongoing expenses for as long as the limit purchase lasts. If $250,000 is not enough to keep your district services running, you can increase this amount as necessary. To assist you in determining an adequate limit to cover your maximum probable possible loss of income, please complete the customized public entity worksheet. This worksheet can be found on our website on the renewal page that Alex mentioned earlier. If you do request a higher limit than $250,000, this worksheet will be required. And that worksheet will also be linked into the form in the Origami's renewal survey. And you'll be able, once completed, you'll be able to upload it before the survey's submitted with all the updates that you've provided to us. Next, with respects to the wind hail deductible endorsement, all members will continue to have the wind hail deductible endorsement attached to your property coverage regardless of location. This endorsement states that in the event of damage to a scheduled building or structure, outdoor property, that's caused by wind or hail, the deductibles increase to 2% of the value of the covered damaged property and applicable business income, subject to a $5,000 minimum and a $50,000 maximum per occurrence, unless a higher deductible is scheduled at that damaged location. For members whose total real property and outdoor property values exceed $25 million, the maximum deductible per occurrence increases from $50,000 to $75,000. Please note that for an additional contribution, the pool does have an optional deductible buyback endorsement, which will reduce the wind and hail deductible to a flat $5,000 per occurrence. Note that the endorsement must be added no later than May 1st. Otherwise, it will be unavailable until the next renewal. Also, if your properties are located in any of the hail-prone counties shown, the additional charge is 33% of a district's property contribution. For all other districts, the additional charge is 10%. Please enter a note in the renewal survey if you'd like to consider purchasing the deductible buyback endorsement for your district, and we'll provide a quote to you for your consideration.
And we have a couple of questions that have come through. Do you want to take them now or wait till the end?
No, we can take them now. Thanks, Alex.
All right. So we got a couple that are going back to when we talked about sanitation maintenance warranty. So we'll start with a question from Kathy Francis. Are we able to extract data for staff review? I think this might be just in regards to the general origami system.
If the question is extracting the information, meaning putting them on an Excel spreadsheet, you cannot do that through the origami link, but please send us an email and we'll be happy to get that those schedules to you in that format. I hope that answered your question, Kathy. If not, let us know.
Kathy followed up in response saying auto schedules, building schedules specifically.
So if you want those in Excel format, we'll be happy to provide those to you. Just send us an email and we'll get those to you for whichever district you need them for.
Right. We have a question from Candy came in. So can you subtract the amount paid to an auditor into a bookkeeping firm? And this would have came in when we were on that sanitation slide, I believe.
And I think that has to do with total operating expenses. And uh, for 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 an audit, so it's audit, and what was the other one, Alex?
Uh, can you subtract the amount paid to an auditor and to a bookkeeping firm?
You can to a bookkeeping firm if you have a contract with them and you obtain a certificate of insurance from them, and they provide you with their insurance coverage in the event of a loss. So you can on the bookkeeper. On the auditor, my hesitation is simply that if it's required, then it's an expense. If it's an audit that you're doing for the benefit of the district, and that auditor provides you, again, it's contract, you have a certificate, um, then we could consider it. I would suggest to submit that to us for evaluation, and we'll let you know on the audit part of it.
Okay. We question here from Herb. On what exposure does a sanitation district get a 30% discount?
The the exposure that they get the discount on is on the contribution for those total operating expenses under general liability. So the 33% credit is applied to that contribution amount.
Okay, and one last question from Bob, and this is in regard to budgets. Last year, their district did not have budgets done until the end of December, ended up doing an amendment in January. So that leaves some uncertainty this year. Given that, how will that affect when they have to have paperwork in that is dependent on their budget?
So you can still use your draft budget that districts create this time of year. Um, and usually, if the total operating expenses are within about 5%, you're still okay with that. If it's a large increase, like 25%, we'd like to know so we can make that adjustment, which will also affect your budget. Um, if you, I always recommend to go on the high side. It's better for the pricing to come in lower than to go higher. Um, and if you need any assistance with that, please let us know. We're happy to walk through it with you in order to make sure that that what you're providing to us is what we need in order for us to get pretty close to the numbers that are needed in terms of the renewal and for your budget. I hope that answered your question, Bob.
Okay, we'll move on here. Again, just keep chatting with questions or follow-ups, and we'll pause again at the end of this section.
A reminder regarding Thamba safety. That is a continuous motor vehicle report monitoring service. It's a risk management software that's available to districts to allow near-time alerts when employees receive driving violations, which allows you to proactively address any needed training in order to reduce crashes and expenses, and in turn save costs on claims, contribution increases, and litigation. Any member that is not actively using Samba Safety or does not keep their driver list current will receive a 5% surcharge against their auto liability and auto physical damage contribution. Apologies, it says rates contribution. And if you have if you'd like more information about this program, please we have information on our website. And if you'd like to sign up, please email us at info@csdpool.org. With regards to certificates of coverage, a list of the current certificate holders will be included in your renewal survey. Please review them for accuracy to determine if any certificate is out of date, if it needs to be deleted, if it needs to be updated, etc. Also, please be sure to verify each holder's mailing address for accuracy. We do mail hard copies to each holder in beginning to middle of December so that they have current proof of a district's coverage. So having an accurate address will avoid any delays in delivery. You may see a bad address indicated on some of those certificates. It's a little box that will say bad address. What that means is that we tried to mail last year's and it came back as undeliverable. That one would require you to provide us with an accurate address. Otherwise, it'll be deleted at renewal since we wouldn't be able to mail them a hard copy because we don't have an accurate address on file. Also, if you see a certificate that's missing, please complete the certificate request form that's available on our website. Complete it, return it to us at pc@csdpool.org, or you can upload it to the survey before submitting it. We'll get that one added for you and issued with your renewal documents. Also, if you submit any additions, if we have any questions regarding the certificate, we'll get in touch with you. And if we need a complete copy of the contract for coverage extensions, such as additional covered members, additional insureds, those kinds of things, we'll get in touch with you. And finally, with regards to the 2025 rate, rate increases are going to range between 2% and 10% for each coverage, for various coverage lines, based on the performance of each district type. We do this annually and how it's performed. Property has the highest increase this year. Those specifics by district type will be available on the website, on the renewal page that Alex mentioned. It is the 2025 renewal review, and it will show you each one by entity type for your reference. You will notice there's a 0.75 on the property. I do want to explain that in 2023, $11 million was paid on claims. 86% of that was due to weather events. And also the reinsurance costs increased by about $3 million this year because of the number of weather events that we had in 2023. Therefore, overall, the property coverage has been underperforming. Due to these factors, an additional 2.75 has been added to each district's 2.75 has been added to each district entity type's rate increase for this year. And this increase is in order for us to gain back funds that are needed for future weather events, because those are going to continue. I think we've all seen it, that weather doesn't stop. So I wanted to explain why the property rate increase is a little different this year, and those are the reasons behind it. Also, district's individual experience, similar to how workers' comp is calculated, we determine it by coverage line, and we use the previous 8 years of losses and contributions to determine a district's positive or negative experience to date. To minimize an impact a severe loss year can have, we do limit the total losses amount to 3 times the contribution amount paid, and any rate changes are limited to a 25% increase or decrease. After a district's been with a pool member for 7 or more consecutive years, you are eligible for a continuity credit ranging from 1% to 20% on a sliding scale depending on your years of participation and your overall loss ratio. I mentioned it. If your district's located in a hail-prone county that we've previously showed, there's a 7% increase to the hail surcharge rate. As a reminder, this surcharge was added after the large hail losses in 2018, and we've implemented incremental increases over the 10-year time period in order to achieve rate stabilization to avoid rate spikes when bad weather occurs. With regards to properties in flood zone A, the rate will increase by 5%. Volunteer accident rates will increase by 50%. I know that sounds like a lot, but no one district would pay more than $350 approximately, and that's rated on volunteer hours. Also, the minimum contribution will increase from $35 to $50. Again, more details about the rate changes for 2025, including that list of district types, will be in the renewal invitation, will be included in your renewal invitation email, presented at the annual membership meeting, and will be available under the Renewal Information Hub on our website. Finally, we do have some coverage changes that are being made to the common terms and conditions, public entity liability, property, and auto physical damage coverage documents. The changes are made to clarify or increase coverage. Those forms will be on our website with a summary of the changes made by December 1st. And with that, then I will ask Alex any other questions that came in.
Yeah, we have one question that came in just a second ago from South Park Parks and Recreation. Question is, will the continuity credit be automatically applied, or do I need to reach out to inquire?
It'll automatically be applied, and it should be reflected on the main page of your renewal documents.
Great. And that's the only one left at this point. So we will pause here and answer any other questions that may have come up throughout the presentation. We have plenty of time to answer any questions. So go ahead and type that into the chat box now, and we will address those. Workers' compensation or property liability, anything we talked about today, go ahead and ask those now. While those questions are coming in, want to put out a couple PSAs, some reminders for renewal and renewal related events. Our annual membership meeting is going to be held on September 11th this year at the SDA conference. If you'd like to attend that, if you're going to be in Keystone, Colorado, we'd love to see in person, and you can click there and that will take you to a event page that you can set as a reminder. You do need to attend the SDA conference in order to attend our membership meeting. It will be held virtually as well as in person. And on that link there, we do have scholarships still available. So if you'd like to attend and wanted to apply to try to receive some funding, you can do so by clicking through on that link. In addition, how to watch for updates this year. We mentioned it throughout today's session, but our Renewal Information Hub is now live on our website. If you go to csdpool.org, it'll be a blue banner at the top of our website. You can access it directly by csdpool.org/renewal. And everything that we talked about today, a bunch of supporting documents, slides for today's webinar session are available there, and a lot of resources that can help you understand how to move through this process. In addition, we're also posting the timeline on there, so that's how you can kind of keep up with when your deadlines are. You can also follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn. That's where we're posting periodic updates to our news website, articles that are relevant, any updates that are important. It'll go out through there as well, in addition to the normal channels that we use to communicate with our membership. And finally, the last reminder I wanted to touch on, if you're a member with liability coverage and you're participating in the training credit program, just as a reminder, those updates or that program closes at the end of September. And so if you are looking to get that discount and you have liability coverage with us, you'll want to make sure that you complete those requirements by that time. In addition, if you are a member with increased cyber sublimits, and you've taken a cyber assessment through Net Diligence or a third party, and you want to keep those limits, we have those follow-up year requirements due also September 30th in order to keep those limits as well. If you have any questions about this, you can email us at info@csdpool.org. We did have one question that came through from Shay, and this is in regards to Samba safety. Just to confirm for Samba safety monitoring, do we add all employees that would be driving a company vehicle in there?
We recommend you add all employees that would drive any vehicle on district business. That can include an employee's personal vehicle, just so that you have you can manage any training that your employees might need. If employees don't use their personal vehicle, then it would just be the employees that drive a district-owned vehicle on district business.
Great. And lastly, just want to say thank you to everybody for attending and put up this final slide that has all of our contact information. So as you work through renewal this year, these are the email addresses to jot down or set as a reminder. If you have P&L questions, property and liability questions, pc@csdpool.org will get you to support directly. The same can be said for workers' compensation questions. That's wc@csdpool.org. And again, the Renewal Information Hub is going to be a great resource for you as well. So recommend bookmarking that, checking that often. We do update it if the timeline does change, but that's going to be the place that will have all the information that you need. Let's see, we have one more question that came through, and it is also in regards to some safety reporting. So the question is, if employees drive personal vehicles to conferences or trainings, do we need vehicle coverage?
Alex, one more time.
If employees drive personal vehicles to conferences or trainings, do we need vehicle coverage?
It would be an employee's personal auto coverage would be primary because it's their personally owned vehicle. Because they're driving on district business, the district's coverage that would respond is non-owned auto liability that is automatically provided to districts within your coverage. So you would have coverage in the event the district is sued because the employee got in an accident while they're going to a conference or a training that you've asked them to attend and have been paying for.
Okay, great. All right, and if there are any other questions, we'll start to wrap up here, but I'll talk a little slowly in case there are. If you have any that pop into your brain after the session's over, you can reach us by emailing those emails that you see on the screen here. And so we're happy to follow up with you and answer any questions that you might have. Just go ahead and note those email addresses, and we'll be able to make sure that this renewal season and renewal process is as smooth as it can possibly be. So seeing no other questions coming through, just want to thank the membership again for being here and taking the time out of your day to go over some of these details. And thanks to Juan and Anna for presenting today. A lot of information, but really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for attending with us today.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a nice rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.